Hello, it is Whovian Monday. Today I am going to talk about Listen, the 4th episode of Doctor Who Series 8. As always, do not watch this if you haven't seen the episode. I'm going to keep saying it. This has been the hardest episode for me so far to recap, but I'll give it a go. We start off with the Doctor alone in the TARDIS, or on the TARDIS, but then in the TARDIS, and speaking out loud to himself. He asks why we speak out loud when we're on our own, and maybe it is because we're not alone. Maybe there is a creature who is excellent at hiding, and what would such a creature do if it exists, which the Doctor hypothesises is the case. And then a word appears on the blackboard that the Doctor is using. Listen. I thought this was a great opener to the episode. It introduced the main idea. Capaldi is great at these sort of monologues, and I found it pretty creepy as well because I could sort of relate to it. I thought, yes, why do I speak out loud when I'm on my own? After the credits, Clara enters her flat alone. She has just had her date with Danny Pink and it obviously hasn't gone particularly well. We flash back to the start of the date itself. It starts pretty awkwardly until they start talking about work, but then unfortunately Clara puts her foot in it slightly by saying something about killing, which Danny takes issue with, and then more arguing ensues and Clara walks out. Back to the present, I guess the Doctor is in Clara's bedroom and wants her to come with him. He tells her his theory about the creature. He thinks that everybody has had the same nightmare, one about a monster being under the bed which grabs your ankle. Anyway, the Doctor has this like telepathic interface thing in the TARDIS where Clara sort of puts her hands into this goo stuff and the TARDIS latches onto her timeline and will go to the place that she thinks of. He wants her to take them to the place and time where she first had the dream. Unfortunately, during that process, Danny calls her and she is distracted. They are at a children's home in Gloucester in the mid-90s. Clara says she has never been to Gloucester, but the Doctor says she's probably just blocked it out. He tells her to go back to the TARDIS though, because it's not a good idea to meet yourself. On her way back to the TARDIS, she sees a boy looking out the window. He waves at her, much as Danny waves. He is called Rupert Pink, but he doesn't like his forename and wants to change it. The Doctor is talking to a member of staff at the children's home and Clara sneaks past him and goes up to the boy's room. The boy is scared because he thinks a monster is under the bed, but Clara reassures him. This isn't the first time we have seen Clara interact with children. I mean, obviously she is a teacher, she has been a nanny in the past. Many children have been involved in her story from the beginning, but yet this was the first time where it was really impressed upon me how good she is with children. They lie under the bed to prove that nothing is there, and while they are there, something sits on the bed. I found this like the creepiest thing. There is something sitting on the bed, covered by the bedspread. They think it could be a child playing a joke on Rupert, or possibly not. The Doctor is in the corner. He talks to Rupert about the thing on the bed and how he is scared of it and how it is not a bad thing to be scared of something. I would have loved somebody to say that stuff to me when I was a kid. The Doctor makes them all turn away from the creature and close their eyes. The creature gets off the bed and sort of moves towards them and takes its bedspread off, but you can't see what's under. This would have been my hiding behind the sofa moment in the episode. I thought it was done really well. Then there's a noise and the creature is gone. Clara helps to reassure Rupert before he goes back to bed by putting a row of toy soldiers around his bed to protect him. And there is a boss one without a gun, which Rupert calls Dan the Soldier Man. The Doctor sends him to sleep with dad's skills and gives him a dream about being Dan the Soldier Man. Back on the TARDIS, the Doctor wonders why they ended up in that place and Clara doesn't say why she thinks they ended up in that place. Clara asks the Doctor to take her back to the restaurant so that she can resume her date with Danny and they can try and start again. It's going okay until Clara puts her foot in it slightly by mentioning that his name is Rupert. Danny is pretty suspicious about how she knew his former name and about where her coat has gone because she left the restaurant with her coat and she came back into it without one. He leaves. A guy in a spacesuit appears in the restaurant and beckons her towards the TARDIS. She follows him thinking that he is the Doctor. However, when he takes his helmet off, the guy looks just like Danny Pink. The Doctor introduces Orson Pink from 100 years in the future. The Doctor followed the trace from the telepathic link and found him at the end of the universe. Orson time-travelled in the first of the great time shots. He was supposed to go a week into the future, but went a bit far, and he's now been stuck there for 6 months. The Doctor says they can't leave immediately to take Orson home because the TARDIS needs to recharge, so they'll just have to stay there overnight. The Doctor wonders why Orson has kept the door locked, even though he is the last person on Earth. Orson says the dark isn't empty. Clara takes him into the TARDIS where he will be safe. In his bag, she finds Dan the Soldier Man. He says it is a family heirloom. He says that time travel runs in the family. He says that one of his great-grandparents used to tell stories about time travel. He gives her Dan the Soldier Man. She resists, saying that it is a family heirloom. He says yeah. Then, outside, the Doctor and Clara wait. All sorts of weird noises are going on. The Doctor wants to know what the creatures would do after everyone was gone and there was only one man left in the universe. There's a knock at the door, or maybe it's just the hull cooling. The Doctor unlocks the door, as he would, and makes Clara go back to the TARDIS. Clara tries to see what's going on in the monitors in the TARDIS, but can't. The air shell is breached. The Doctor is hanging on for dear life. Orson saves him and drags him back to the TARDIS. The Doctor is knocked out. Clara puts her hands back in the telepathic link gooey stuff so she can take them away from there. She gets distracted by the Doctor during this process. Clara leaves the TARDIS to see where they are. They are in a barn and there is a child crying on a bed. First she thinks it is Rupert and then she thinks it is Orson. A man and a woman enter the barn, so Clara hides under the bed. They're talking about the boy. They say he is welcome in the house with the other boys. He doesn't want to join the army, but he's not going to the academy. He'll never be a Time Lord. Clara realises where she is. The man and woman leave the barn. The Doctor has woken up back in the TARDIS and shouts. The boy has heard a noise and gets up. Clara grabs his ankle. She tells him it's a dream and to go back to sleep, and she sits on the bed to comfort him. Clara returns to the TARDIS and makes the Doctor leave immediately. She says, what if there was nothing all along? Then quite a lot of things are happening at once. We see John Hurt travelling back to the barn in the future. We see the Doctor and Clara taking Orson home. We see Clara hugging the Doctor against his will. We see Clara appearing on Danny's doorstep and them making up. And Clara comforts the boy in the barn. She says fear doesn't have to make you cruel or cowardly. Fear can make you kind. It's okay to be afraid. Fear is like a companion. Fear makes companions of us all. And then she leaves the boy down the soldier man. I love this speech at the end. It was goosebumps. So, what did you think of this episode? This has been my favourite Moffat episode for a long time. Not my favourite Moffat episode ever, but it's been my favourite for a while, quite a while. It was very Moffat-y, and it reminded me a lot of Coupling. I'm not sure whether that was due to the kind of relationship between Clara and Danny in the middle of it, or whether it was all the flashbacks to like 10 minutes previously and the really complicated plotting and stuff. It was maybe not the best for a casual fan, but for regular viewers, I think it was a great episode. I'm not sure if this is my favourite episode of this series yet. After I watched it the first time, I still preferred Robot of Sherwood, but since I watched it again this morning, I've been a bit more ambivalent about that. I also think it was a great kind of episode to come after Robot of Sherwood. I'd really recommend re-watching this episode. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot to appreciate the second time round. I love that there was a resolution, but that quite a bit was left ambiguous. I especially loved all that the episode had to say about fear. I've read a lot about this episode being pretty scary for children, and it was pretty scary, but I think that if I had watched this episode as a child, I would have found it quite reassuring. All the things that the Doctor and Clara said about fear and being afraid and how you can use that to your advantage. My favourite monsters in Doctor Who are always the ones that you don't see, or the ones that could most believably exist in the real world. I loved the Weeping Angels when they were first introduced, you know, statues that don't move unless you're looking away. And the worst thing that ever happened to the Weeping Angels for me was when we saw them move. The magic was lost for me after we saw the Weeping Angels move. Now I'm a pretty big fan of the silence. I guess what I'm trying to say is I really liked the concept of this episode and what the fear was in this episode. So in conclusion, I really enjoyed this episode. I think the series is going in the right direction. At the moment, I am really happy with where the Doctor is going. I'm extremely happy with where Clara is going. And I'm also pretty happy with where Danny is going. Episode 5 is Time Heist. It is written by Stephen Thompson and Stephen Moffat, directed by Douglas MacKinnon, and guest starring Keeley Hawes. Synopsis time. The Bank of Karabraxos is the deadliest bank in the cosmos. Only a fool or a genius would attempt to rob it. Fortunately for the Doctor, he's both. With the help of a beautiful shapeshifter and cyber-augmented gamer, the Doctor and Clara fight their way past the most dangerous security system ever devised. But nothing even the Doctor has encountered can prepare them for the Teller, a creature of terrifying power that can detect guilt. It could be an interesting change-up again. What did you think about this episode? What do you think about the themes? Where they're going with the characters? I hope you have a good day, and see you tomorrow.